It's going to be a nice, warm, sunny evening across the KELOLAND region. Overnight tonight, we would expect to see some thicker wildfire smoke coming to Sioux Falls, Aberdeen, and eastern KELOLAND with a hazy sky, a low of 62 degrees. Pierre could see some thunder showers coming in later, a low of 60. And Rapid City breezy with a few thunder showers possible, 52. Not expecting anything severe. Then during the day tomorrow, partly cloudy skies, very warm again. 89 Sioux Falls, 84 Aberdeen, 80 in Pierre, 65 in Rapid City. Good chance of thunder showers western and central South Dakota. Some of those may come to Sioux Falls and Aberdeen late tomorrow afternoon into tomorrow evening. The better chance of rain for us in Sioux Falls actually tomorrow night into Saturday. We'll have your weekend forecast in detail coming up. KELOLAND News starts now.
Live from KELOLAND Media Group, KELOLAND News first at 4.
Governor Kristi Noem was in the nation's capital today, testifying against a proposed rule change from the Bureau of Land Management.
Plus, we'll hear from North Dakotans about what they think of their governor running for president.
And later, we'll take a look at the latest construction work being done on the new Unity Bridge in downtown Sioux Falls. Good afternoon, and thanks for tuning in to First at 4. I'm Don Jorgensen.
And I'm Kelly Volk. South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem testified before Congress today about a new rule being proposed by the Bureau of Land Management.
Noem, along with governors of other western states, opposed the Bureau's plan to place a stronger emphasis on the conservation efforts of public lands.
It's burdensome. It will shut down economic activity in these regions of the country, which right now facing the inflation and the stagnation that we're seeing.
We'll take a closer look at what the Bureau of Land Management is proposing for the future of public lands, as well as the debate surrounding the proposal coming up in our second half hour of First at 4.
The U.S. Supreme Court has preserved the system that gives preference to Native American families in foster care and adoption proceedings of Native children. The justices rejected an attack from some Republican-led states and white families who argued that the system is based on race. Tribal leaders have backed the 1978 Indian Child Welfare Act as a means of preserving their families, traditions, and cultures. During the latest legislative session, a bill was introduced in South Dakota to create a task force to find solutions to the disproportionate number of Native children in the foster care system. However, the proposal failed in the House. Several tribes condemned the inaction of lawmakers to address the welfare of Native American children.
The Iowa Board of Regents approved a 3.5% increase in tuition for the state's public universities. Members say that the tuition increase was due to lawmakers denying the regents' request for a $32 million increase in funding during the legislative session. The tuition increase means that students at the University of Iowa will pay over $600 more of tuition this fall. Students at Iowa State and the University of Northern Iowa will see a roughly $400 increase. During the same meeting, the regents approved pay raises for the presidents of the University of Iowa and the University of Northern Iowa.
Well, we've got a 90-degree day on our hands in some parts of KELOLAND.
Yeah, it's a warm one out there, Megan.
It is warm and sunny here in eastern South Dakota, Don and Kelly. Right now, 90 degrees in Sioux Falls. Hardly any wind, but it is a different story in western South Dakota. A cooler 64 in Rapid City right now. North winds at 23 miles an hour. We have been watching a few rain and thunder showers in western South Dakota this afternoon. And if we take a look at KELOLAND Live Doppler radar, there are those rain showers near Mobridge and by Buffalo, slowly moving to the north. But in the southern part of the region, some heavier rain showers south of Hot Springs along the Nebraska border, producing lightning this afternoon. Nothing is severe today, at least in our area. 90 in Sioux Falls, Mitchell, Aberdeen, 92 in Pierre, and a cooler 58 right now in Custer. For tonight, we'll watch thicker Canadian wildfire smoke move in from the east into Sioux Falls and Aberdeen, with a low of 62 for Sioux Falls and Aberdeen, 60 in Pierre, and a breezy 52 in Rapid City. Central and western South Dakota do have a chance of overnight rain and thunder showers. And for the day tomorrow, partly cloudy skies and warm again, 89 in Sioux Falls, 84 in Aberdeen, 80 in Pierre, and a breezy 65 in Rapid City. There is a chance of afternoon rain and thunder showers again for just about everybody. Saturday brings another chance of afternoon rain and thunder showers, mainly in eastern KELOLAND, with a high of 80 for Sioux Falls and Aberdeen, 82 in Pierre and partly cloudy, and 74 in Rapid City. Father's Day Sunday looks to be mainly quiet. We'll take a closer look at your upcoming weekend in just a little bit.
Thanks, Megan. A 30-year-old Mission man will spend more than 3 years behind bars for assaulting a federal officer. Dylan Bluebird is convicted of assaulting, resisting, and impeding a federal officer. Now, back in September, Rosebud Sioux Tribe law enforcement tried to stop Bluebird for traffic violations. Bluebird then led officers on a chase with speeds reaching 110 miles per hour. He also drove in the wrong direction towards law enforcement, forcing an officer off the road. Authorities used spike strips to stop the chase and arrest Bluebird.
A 21-year-old Dupree, South Dakota man will spend 3 years in prison for having sexual contact with a teenager incapable of consenting. Floyd Traversy pleaded guilty to the charge. Back in June of 2020, Traversy had sex with a 17-year-old girl who he knew was incapacitated at the time. The case was investigated by the Cheyenne River Sioux Tribe and the FBI. Well, there's a new push in Congress to change the classification of fentanyl as efforts to crack down on the deadly drug.
KELOLAND News Washington, D.C. correspondent Rashad Hudson has more.
West Virginia Attorney General Patrick Morrisey traveled to Washington Thursday to urge lawmakers to crack down more on fentanyl.
Washington has failed us on this issue, and that's why, as a state official, I'm stepping up.
Morrisey wants the Senate to swiftly pass the Halt Fentanyl Act. The act would permanently classify fentanyl and similar substances as Schedule I drugs without accepted medical use and a high potential for abuse.
There needs to be more prosecutions of those who are trafficking in fentanyl.
According to the CDC, last year more than 100,000 people in the U.S. died from drug overdose, many of them fentanyl-related. West Virginia Republican Senator Shelley Moore Capito also supports the Halt Fentanyl Act. She says it will help fight a worsening drug epidemic.
And anything that we can do to halt the flow of fentanyl. I've talked a lot about the precursor chemicals that are coming in from China, that are going to Mexico and then up through our southern border.
Ohio Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown says he supports nearly every effort to get those drugs off the street, but also wants a focus on recovery.
People often accidentally get addicted to these drugs. Getting them in treatment can save lives.
Last month, the White House also called on the Senate to pass the bill. Reporting in Washington, Rashad Hudson.